All right, my clock is showing 3:03, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for hopping on for today's Forte site call. Can't believe we're already almost at the end of the year. One more year for Forte. Well, I don't know if anyone's seen that we have surpassed the 2,200 participants number. We're at 2,213 right now, which is very exciting. More than 60 accruing sites, and there's a lot of new sites that are also hopped on and gotten activated recently. So we're really grateful to those of you from those sites who are still getting involved at Forte. So just wanted to start there and thank you all for your hard work. As always, we have the Energy Forte team here to help you with any of your data collection questions. Any clinical questions, any eligibility questions, feel free to route your questions to forte@energyoncology.org at any time. Today we do have Lisa Beaverson, who's here to talk to us about stool collection, a very exciting topic. And you will see in her presentation why we are talking about this, because as much as we want to maybe avoid it a little bit, there's definitely things that we want to be educating patients about with the stool collection topic. So, Kristen, I see you unmuted, so
I
you
just
want to
wanted to
chime
say
in?
it's everyone's favorite topic. Everyone wants to talk about the stool collection on Forte, right, Lisa?
The only thing better than that is actually collecting the stool or processing it.
You took it to a whole new level. Thank you for that.
Yep.
That's all I wanted to say. Anyways, real quick, my name's Kristen Kotsko. Director of the Clinical Coordinating Department at Energy Oncology in Pittsburgh. I work with Cheryl, Dr. Schoen, and Dr. Duker on Forte. My group is answering clinical questions for Forte. So if you have any questions, clinical or just don't know who to ask something to, please use the Forte at energyoncology.org email box. We can get it to the right person. Cheryl, are we ready to turn it over to Lisa, or do you have more you want to? You ready? Okay, Lisa, we're turning it over to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay. So my name's Lisa Beaverson. I'm one of the coordinators at the Energy Biospecimen Bank in Columbus, and we do receive the stool samples for the Forte trial. I have no disclosures to report, so I'm going to get right into it. Well, I'm trying to. Okay, so as you all probably know, stool submission is a mandatory component of the Forte trial, and it is collected at 3 time points: baseline, 24 months after randomization, and then 48 months after randomization. And as you can see, we have the specimen codes beside each time point. I know that for the gynecologic trials, sites are used to using these specimen codes, but it may be new to some of you. The ST in the beginning of the code stands for stool, and then the 01, 02, and 03 kind of tell what the time point is. So as I said, these specimens are submitted to the bank in Columbus. So we do provide specimen kits for the submission and collection of the stool. Those are ordered through our kit management system. Each kit provides an Omnigene gut collection tube, a toilet accessory, and that is something that the participant will place over the stool to capture, or over the toilet to capture the stool. Then there's a spatula that they can use to collect the stool and place it into the collection tube. The kit also provides an Omnigene collection sheet that will provide specific instructions right from Omnigene about how to collect the specimen. And then we also have an instruction sheet for site staff, kind of giving some advice from the bank on how to work with this participant to have the stool collected and shipped. And then we provide shipping instructions for the participant, as well as a shipping box and all the necessary supplies, including a prepaid air bill. So the steps for collection, first, the site staff will order the kit from the kit management site. And then when they receive the kit, they should review the contents and the collection instructions so that they're familiar with them. Then at the time that you're going to provide the kit to the participant, you should label the collection tube. And in labeling, keep in mind that the date the sample is collected will need to be added by the participant. You should also complete a transmittal form in RAVE and then provide that to the participant with the kit also. And again, the participant will need to add the sample collection date and shipment date to the transmittal form. So you will review the instructions with the participant and be prepared to answer any questions they may have, and then you will provide them the kit with the labeled collection tube and the transmittal form. So the participant will use the collection kit to collect the stool at home. They will document the collection date on the tube. They will document both the collection date and shipment dates on the transmittal form, and then they will ship the stool and the completed transmittal form to the biospecimen bank. So we'll receive the specimen, and what we do is we visually assess the specimen and kind of look to see, is it labeled correctly? Is the tube in good condition? Is it not expired? And then we will follow up with the site if we have any issues or any questions about the specimen. And then if necessary, we will follow up with energy if we can't identify the participant, because sometimes we get tubes without labeling and we do need to reach out for help. So once we have assessed the specimen, we will accession it into our laboratory management system and then process the specimen, and then it will be banked until time for distribution. So I wanted to provide some data for this year. So the data I'm going to discuss is from specimens received January 1st through October 18th of this year. So far during that time, we provided 988 kits. We have received 673 specimens. And when we receive specimens, we will deem them either adequate or inadequate. 417 were considered adequate. That means there were no issues upon visual inspection of both the specimen and paperwork. But 256 of the specimens, or about 38%, had at least one type of issue that made us deem it inadequate. So I wanted to do a breakdown of the different types of inadequacy in the specimens we've received. So the top inadequacy would be that the specimens were labeled incorrectly, and that was 220 of the specimens. Then about 16 were received without a transmittal form. Some of them were received leaking, which may mean that the participant did not adequately, put the cap on. It wasn't tight enough, or maybe it was uneven. Then we had about 4 specimens received in an expired collection tube. Now, it's really important that when we receive the specimen, the tube is not expired. And it's a little more difficult for this study because typically you would be collecting the specimen yourself, so you could look and see, okay, this tube is fine, it's not expired. But since you were providing it to the participant and they're collecting the specimen at a later date, it's a little trickier. So at the time you're providing the kit, it would be good if you had some idea of when the specimen was going to be collected so that you could ensure that it would be collected and received at the bank prior to the expiration date on the tube. We had 4 tubes received with either no or very little reagent. It's very important that the reagent is in the tube because that keeps the specimen viable until we can receive and process it. We had 1 tube that was received broken and another one that was received cracked. And then we had 2 specimens that were received a month or more after collection. And honestly, this is the first time I've seen this happen, so we have not included instructions in the information, the instructions we provide stating that the specimen needs to be collected as soon as possible after, or shipped as soon as possible after collection. So that is something we may have to update, and that's something to keep in mind when you're talking to the participant. Just make sure that they know that they really should ship the specimen as soon as they can after they collect it. There was 1 collection tube that contained too much stool. And the reason that's important is because we want to make sure that the reagent kind of immerses the stool. The reagent is what is keeping the stool viable, so we don't want so much stool in the container that all of the stool I was trying to think, immersed in the reagent. But this is good because initially when we started this study, we had a lot of stool that was coming to us with too much stool in the collection tube. So this is actually an improvement. And then there was one mysterious specimen that was received wrapped in paper rather than in the collection tube. So I would kind of like to know the story of what happened with that participant, but I can only imagine. So that was unusual, but not very good for specimen quality. So as you can see from the data I've been going over, the number one issue that we have with the specimens we receive is the labeling. And when we get a specimen that's not labeled correctly, we either deem it labeled incorrectly corrected or labeled incorrectly not corrected. So if it's not corrected, that means that we were not able to confirm and correct the labeling. But of the specimens that were not labeled correctly, 209 of them, we were able to talk to the enrolling site and correct the labeling. And as a side note, there were 21 of the specimens that had discrepant information between the transmittal form and the collection tube. So just make sure when you're labeling the tube and filling out the transmittal form that the information does match. So the labeling that is required is the participant ID, the bank ID, the protocol number, the biospecimen code, and the collection date. So those are what's required. I've kind of did a breakdown of what was missing on some of them. There were 25 specimens that did not have the participant ID, 47 that did not have a bank ID, 20 that did not have the protocol number, and then 47 that did not have the biospecimen code. And we noticed several specimens that had a label that listed all three biospecimen codes. So I'm not certain whether the site provided a label to the participant and expected them to circle that, or whether they intended to circle the correct specimen code. So if you are providing labels with all three specimen codes, make sure that you do circle the correct one before giving the participant the collection kit. Um, but the number one thing missing was the collection date. You can see there were 205 samples that did not have the collection date. And I know that's a little out of your control because that's something that the participant has to do. So it'd be great if you would just really emphasize to the participant that the collection date needs to be added by them. But what is most concerning to me about the labeling is that there were 17 specimens that did not have any labeling at all on the collection tube. So that is a problem because we really need to have those patient identifiers. But what makes it worse is, I think you saw in the previous slide that we receive specimens without transmittal forms also. So if we receive a specimen that both doesn't have any labeling on the tube and does not have a transmittal form, it is almost impossible to identify the participant. The air bills for this study, since we're providing them, they do not have the return address for your site or any information about the participant. So the only way that we can try and figure out who the specimen belonged to is by tracking the package. That will tell us the city of origin for the shipment. But since we have so many sites participating, that may not really tell us which site enrolled the patient. We've noticed or had at least one instance where the participant wasn't even in the same state as the enrolling institution. So it's just very difficult. And I really reach out to Kristen. She's a big help with helping us track down the participant when this happens. So if we cannot identify the participant, then the specimen has to be banked as a D-linked specimen, and it actually can't be used for this study. So we have 6 specimens that are right now that are banked as D-linked that were received this year. There are probably additional from previous years of this study, but right now for this year, the ones we've received, we have 6. So unfortunately, that's 6 specimens where the patient has taken the time to collect it and we cannot use it. So I want to talk now about ways we can maybe improve specimen quality. The one thing is to make sure that the collection tube is labeled prior to providing it to the participant. If you are providing a label, make sure the label is on the tube before you give it to the participant. you will label the tube with the ID, participant ID, bank ID, protocol number, and the specimen code, and then include a place for the participant to add the collection date. And it might be helpful to highlight the space where they should add the collection date. And then make sure that you do include the completed transmittal form and emphasize that it should be shipped back with the specimen. And likewise, it might be helpful to highlight the places where the participant should add the collection date and the shipment date. So, and you make sure you carefully review the information provided by the study team and the bank with the participant. Emphasize that they should add the collection date. And then remind them to include the completed transmittal form when they're shipping the stool to the bank. And then another thing to clarify is that the stool questionnaire is not shipped to the bank with the stool, because we have been receiving some of those periodically. And since that is the only copy, we have to try to reach out to the site and make sure that we either email or ship it back to them. So I've kind of told you what you can do, but I'd also like to know what we can do to help you. I mean, is there something the bank can do or that the operations staff on this call can do to help improve the submissions? One thing we've discussed is adding a checklist for the participant so that but basically, something that says, did you add the collection date to the tube? Did you add the collection date and ship date to the transmittal? And just kind of reminders for the participant. And then the other thing I was wondering, we have a lot of information for the site. I wonder if we should have a checklist for you too, just a short little list of reminders that as you're providing the kit to the participant, that will remind you to make sure that there's a transmittal form, make sure the tube is labeled. So Kristen, did you want to say something?
So I just wanted to clarify, Lisa, when you were talking about the labels and missing study number, were you referring to the protocol number or the patient
Right.
ID?
The study number, I mean the Energy CC005. Thanks that's a good clarification, because the participant ID would be the patient's number.
Right. There in the chat, there's a question or a comment that maybe we could add the study number to the labels in the kits that we send to the sites to help reduce the number of samples you receive without study numbers on it.
We don't actually provide the labels in the kit. So we don't, we don't provide labels in the kit.
Okay, Karen, there you go. Can I ask one more question, Lisa, that's
well,
in the
then
chat?
how about providing labels?
That's what I was just going to say. That's what I was going to say. Maybe we don't typically do that for energy trials. Here, I've got a place to put notes here. But let me see if we could do that and at least list all the required labeling.
There's a lot of stuff to write, and that's a tiny label.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you pre-printed that, at least, I don't know, make a bigger label.
Okay. Yeah, and the other thing too is, as we do label, if we put a label on the specimens, we need to make sure that the expiration date is not covered. So let me work with the kit team and see if that's something we could add, because that is a good suggestion, because then that will remind you what needs to go on. Okay, anything else?
There was one more chap. Edgar asked about tracking the samples. He has a couple of subjects who stated they collected and sent the stool, but it seems they have not been received. Samples were sent over a month ago. I said to maybe check it with the tracking number for the shipping company. That's what I would do as my first step.
What you could do is when you're providing a kit to the participant, maybe take a picture of that return label so that you can put, the date you provided the kit to the participant, which participant, and then have the tracking number. Because the problem is if you send the label to the participant, then you don't have the tracking number. So maybe somehow just track the tracking numbers you're providing to the participant.
And Susanna said that she likes the idea of sending them the labels to use.
Okay.
So I've only shipped one sample so far, or had a patient ship it. I felt like there was a peel off for us to keep a tracking number. I can't remember offhand, but isn't there like a Something on
I'll
the
have
label
to
for you to
look.
keep it?
I will have to look.
A lot of
And
the shipping forms have that, Karen.
Yeah, I feel like it had a peel off that we could keep, so we could
Right.
track it.
I'll have to look, and then I can let Cheryl and Kristen know so they can provide an update on that. But I'll look at
Well,
that too.
and Johanna said that the tracking number should also be on the transmittal form within metadata to check it.
That's true. You are supposed to
Yeah.
add that. I forgot that. Thank you for
I
reminding
did
us.
too.
Yeah, I've totally forgot. But yeah, so that is a good point. You should have the tracking number.
Okay, Lisa, now that I've just kind of hijacked and threw off your presentation, I'll go back on quiet.
No, I'm done. The only thing that this is just open discussion. The only other thing I wanted to cover was acknowledgments. And I've got, the bank staff, because Dr. Ramirez is our PI, the staff that have to actually open the boxes and handle the specimens. And then Melanie, I wanted to point out, Melanie is at the bank in Pittsburgh who receives the FFPE and the blood for this protocol. So, I want to acknowledge her. And then Kristen and Cheryl, Francie, Heather, Kristen especially, because she's my go-to person when I get a specimen and I'm going, okay, Kristen, help me. There's no identifiers, no transmittal form. It came from this city, help me. So she is a great resource for me. And then all of you guys really appreciate your dedication to research. And these participants, you bless their hearts, collect their stool and send it to us. It can't be something they really enjoy doing. So that's all I have. I mean, the rest of the time, Kristen, hijack away.
So keep the questions coming, everybody. We want the stool specimen collection to be successful for you. We want the specimens to be useful or usable when they get them in the lab. So do you have any other suggestions or thoughts on how we can make this work better?
And if
So
you're
my
like
pa-
me and and you think about it
oh,
tomorrow, please, email Kristen and Cheryl if you think of
Oh,
something like
definitely.
later on.
So my patient has collected stool samples for other studies, and he said that the thing you give them to use in the toilet is not that great. So maybe you can improve on that.
A different stool accessory? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what they have used out of curiosity?
No, I didn't get that detailed with him.
Okay, no, but that's good feedback to see that we need a different accessory. See, and this is the kind of stuff that I don't get feedback on. So this is very helpful, you guys.
Well, take one home and try it yourself and see.
Maybe I'll do that. I actually
Karen.
have one here with me right now.
Well, I always used to be the test patient for all my other study patients. If that way you know what you're asking your patient to do.
That's true. I've done saliva collection. I have not done the stool collection.
Yeah, big difference there.
Yeah, big difference. Yes. No,
Also,
these are very good. This is very good feedback.
And if you have other questions about FORTE, it doesn't have to just be about the stool collection. Please feel free to take yourself off mute or type it in the chat. We want to hear what's going on out there.
I'm going to stop sharing since I'm done there.
So can I ask, like, what is the most common thing people are finding that are preventing their patients from being eligible? Because Doug and I have looked at least 400 charts and we've only had like 3 eligible patients.
I can say on what I'm hearing from sites is the history of previous adenomas.
That seems to be a big one for us too, but it's just, I mean, we're working so hard and getting nothing.
Right. I mean, we're amending the protocol to lower the age and eligibility from 50 to 45, I should say. Couldn't think of the way I wanted to say that. So at some point in the next couple months, we're going to have the amendment coming out. So that I think is going to help with getting patients enrolled to the study. Anybody else want to share reasons they're finding patients aren't eligible?
I did also want to jump in and say that the address for the biobank in Columbus has changed, and we're updating the manual to have the correct address. But it doesn't matter as much because there's a prepaid FedEx label, but I just wanted to remind you, if you have a shipping label with our old address, please reach out to us and we'll send you updated shipping labels.
Hello. This is Edgar calling from Yale. I think lowering the age will be really great since a lot of the patients are already having the first colonoscopy, um, ages 45 and up. And we're like reaching out to patients who probably already had a colonoscopy and they found a polyp before. So lowering the age to 45 will definitely impact our numbers big time, big way.
So if you have a
Okay.
patient who had a previous sessile polyp, not a sessile serrated, within that 4 years, they're still eligible if it's under a certain size? Because Doug, didn't you come across somebody with that? You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Sorry, Karen, I was trying to get to the screen that has the protocol pulled up. Hold on.
No, I was talking to Doug. I thought he was answering. I could hear him, and I'm like, I think you're on mute.
Karen, I just wanted to mention, statistically speaking, I know that a lot of the so a lot of the sites that are screening patients kind of manually, it's on the higher end 10% of the patients that they screen are potentially eligible. And then from there, even reaching out to them, about 10% of those go on
Yeah,
study. So it is
the-
pretty common for about 1% of the patients you screen to go on study just because yeah, there's a lot of reason for screen fails, previous adenomas, family history, all sorts of things, and then of course finding out about other things on the screening on the consenting call. So it is pretty common for that rate to be a little bit lower.
well, sometimes they mention, like somebody in their family had colon cancer, but like a parent or a sibling, but they don't state the age that they were diagnosed. So I just rule those people out because protocol specifically says they have to have it, under 60, they were diagnosed with it or whatever the specific criteria is. So we've lost, like, I don't know, at least 5 people on that alone. And then the few that were potentially eligible had poor, they did a poor prep. So
Other questions? Please keep them coming. The semi-right sites can order more than 2 kits at a time if needed. Sorry, it's feeding time with the hound dogs here, so they're running all over the place to get to their food.
Yeah, we're trying to work with that. We've had a problem with some supply chain issues, but reach out to us if you do have your a high accruing site and you need more than 2. Please reach out to us so that we can work with you. About we just moved facilities, and when we first moved last month or September, gosh, time's flying. We really were short on shipping boxes, but we've changed to a different supplier, so we do have more availabilities. But just reach out to us if you find that you need more kits than you can order at one time.
And just full disclosure, the reason we limited the number of kits that sites could order at a time was because the kits are a little bit pricey. So we didn't want to have sites order 30 kits, have them sit on the shelf and expire. So we limited the
Yeah.
number sites can order at a time.
Yeah, and we found honestly that whatever we put as the max number of kits you can order, people will order that whether they need them or not. I mean, that's what we've seen. So we just really do, for all studies, have to limit it to 2 per person per day. If you have more than one person at your site that has access to kit management, you can both order 2. And you can get a few more that way.
Okay, just a curiosity question. Has everybody on the call entered a patient on FORTE? Raise your hand if you've randomized a patient to the trial or if your site has.
I'm recognizing names, so I know I kind of know who has because I recognize their names when we have questions.
Interesting. So we have several sites on the call who haven't entered a patient on the study yet. Very interesting. You know, we are here to help. Cheryl and I are here to answer questions and help as you're working through it. If there's a tool you think you need developed to help you when you're screening for potential patients, please reach out. We're here to either we have it created already, which has happened a lot because we've created a lot of tools for the study, or if you need the tool developed, other sites likely need it too.
I've noticed too, I attend the FORTE sessions at the energy meetings, and you often have different sites talking about how they, screen for patients. And there's some really good information in those presentations. So I'd encourage everyone to come to the one in January if you're there, or go online if it's offered online, because they really do offer some insight.
We're actually not going to have a FORTE workshop in January.
Okay, so you won't be.
You're
We're
not.
kind of
Okay.
changing it up a little bit. FORTE is going to be presented at the Encore Town Hall in January,
Okay.
but it's not going to have a specific session on its own for like we normally would.
But if you want to review the past sessions, there's a lot of helpful information, like Lisa said, as we've learned from the trial over time, the different presentations from different sites. They're all on the FORTE YouTube channel. So you can pretty much find it by just looking up on YouTube, FORTE YouTube channel. It should also be on the bottom of all the FORTE Fridays email broadcasts. You should be able to find all the social media links that way as well. So if there's any information you're looking for, you can definitely find it that way. But yeah, it's to more officially open it up to other questions, not necessarily just stool collection. Please feel free to pop it in a chat or unmute yourself. We're here to help.
I'm not sure if my microphone was muted before. I just have a question. I'm looking at a patient today. He has a sessile serrated polyp.
No, his was just sessile.
Sessile? Oh, sessile. Is there a difference between that and the serrated one? Can they be used?
But the other question is, if they don't have tubular adenomas, but they have a sessile polyp, is that part of the eligibility?
Yeah.
Like it's the way that eligibility is kind of split into 2 things.
I see what you're saying, Karen. I'm looking at it right now.
Sessile serrated polyp.
Are we the problem child site? Because we are reading too much into it, or?
So this, you said the patient's it's a sessile, not a sessile serrated, correct?
Yeah, just a
Right.
sessile.
Let me
I've
ask
actually come
Rob.
across several of them.
Or is that just our doctors running it that way?
Let me ask Rocky to be safe. I
But
am
if they
not
have
the
that-
polyp expert.
But they don't have tubular adenomas, so the way that's kind of split. So they definitely have to have a tubular adenoma, and they can have a sessile polyp, or they can just have a sessile and no adenoma.
Serrated, as long as they do not meet the criteria for advanced, will be considered as not advanced.
Maybe we're reading it wrong, but it was just
The
we've been
protocol
seeing.
in the eligibility checklist, it says that the sessile serrated polyp is considered a non-advanced adenoma. So wouldn't that already be a TA technically, since we're considering a TA for the eligibility requirement?
You would think. My only question is, not being again the polyp expert, it specifically says in the eligibility sessile serrated. So if it's sessile, if it's only sessile, doesn't matter. Let me dig into it and I'll look, Karen.
I know it's picky, but like we're scraping the
No.
barrel
Yeah.
right here, so
No,
we're
no,
going
I
for what
get
we
it.
can.
Is there a
I get it.
right?
Because it was less than 5 millimeters.
I'll reach out to you later on
Six.
once I have a definite answer.
Okay, thanks.
I think I should have Dr. Schoen do polyp 101 for one of these site calls.
That'd be great.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And
that'd be great.
Can I see a show of hands as to who would find it helpful? If you think it would be something that would help you in work with Forte, that's what I needed to know. Okay.
I mean, I've done
Oh,
pulmonary
yeah.
hypertension studies, nothing near the colon for years, so
Yeah,
I don't know polyps from whatever.
Okay, this is good to know. Cheryl, we might have a future site call topic. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, other questions? Keep them coming.
So a question for you. For those of you approaching follow-up time points already, how are you guys approaching that at your site? I see a few names on here that should be approaching at least the 1 year mark with some of your participants. How are you approaching that? Or in the case of someone who's a little bit newer, how are you planning on approaching your participants to, of course, have their specimens collected, but also complete the follow-up questionnaires, etc.?
Cheryl, can you hear me? I've been calling them on the phone pretty much to do the follow-up questionnaires. And with the stool collections, for most of the participants that I enrolled, I got their stool specimens like pretty quickly. I only have a couple of people that are outstanding that I'm still trying to get them to, get their stool specimens collected.
Thank you. That is helpful information. So you are reaching out directly to them and calling them.
Yes.
That's good to know. Any other sites? Any insight on that?
Hi, this is Jen with Geisinger. So I also am making the phone call out to the patients. A few I've not been able to reach. I do go ahead and put my note in and I review their chart and put in what I see in the chart. After reaching out, I think it was one I wasn't able to reach, so I did that. The other two, I did the follow-up call after 1 year and was able to reach and answer those from the patient. I had one patient I was not able to collect a stool specimen at the 1 year mark after multiple attempts, and I sent her another box kit. Now, so I have a question on that. I'm really adding a lot in here, but do you do still want the stool specimen if we can get it even if it's after that 1 year from baseline, correct?
Jennifer, you were breaking up on my end. Can you just repeat the end of that?
Okay, so even
I'm
if I
sorry.
am past, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Kristen. Hi, can you hear me? It's Alejandra.
Hello.
Hi, so kind of going back to the CESO serrated for the eligibility criteria, we might have to, depending on that outcome, we might have to then revisit how ineligibility criteria 3.31 is worded, because then that one would, it says excluding, so history of colorectal cancer or colorectal adenomas, including CESO serrated polyps / adenomas, and then it has that excluding those found on qualifying colonoscopy.
Correct. And I think what this is I just need to talk to Dr. Show and get the explanation from him as to how we're wording this. Because everything I know about sessile is that it's more of a descriptive term and it's explaining that it's more like a flat polyp. But I just need to just clarify with him.
Yeah, because I thought that exclusionary criteria was speaking specifically to colorectal cancer, not to the fact that it's a less serrated polyp.
Can you repeat that? It was hard to hear.
Actually, what she's saying, but that exclusion criteria is saying patients with a prior history of colorectal cancer or colorectal adenomas, including those sessile serrated polyps adenomas, the history of sessile serrated polyps or adenomas make the patient ineligible. The ones found on the qualifying colonoscopy, the patients may still be eligible. So if your patient has the sessile serrated polyp or adenoma found on the qualifying colonoscopy, they might still be eligible. It's if they have a history of them, they're not going to be.
But if it's just a sessile and not a sessile serrated, is
That's
every
the part.
sessile polyp serrated? Or is that, I mean, they're saying sessile, not sessile serrated.
Right. And everything, the majority of what I'm reading online right now is saying sessile serrated. There's one article I just came across that said sessile. Let me just talk to Rocky and get it clarified. Jennifer, in regards to your question, and I think you were asking about the stool samples and like the window to collect them, and correct me if I'm wrong, but submission within 1 year of the time point is preferred, but specimens collected greater than 1 year from the time point should still be submitted. I don't know if that's where you were going with that, because you broke up towards the end of your question.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, great. So when I enroll the patient, I try and do everything in that enrollment baseline visit. I give them the kit to go home. And most patients have been sending that into me right away within the first month. I have one lady who didn't get it sent in, then she lost something, so I mailed her a new kit. I've still not been able to get her specimen, and I'm at that 1 year mark. So you would still want that specimen even though it's past the
Yes.
1 year mark, correct? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering too, with the sessile serrated questions, could some gastro providers' verbiage be different as well?
And so my background is very strong in breast cancer. I know a little bit about breast cancer. And that's something that I come across reading path reports and different things with breast cancer patients, is sometimes the verbiage. They're using words interchangeably that maybe in the black and white shouldn't be interchangeable. So I'm kind of wondering if that's where that's going. But again, since I am not the polyp expert and Dr. Stone is more of a polyp expert, I'm going to just run it by him to make sure. Other questions that I can't answer and have to go get help for?
I see one comment in the chat saying sessile refers to the
It's
shape of a
right. It's
polyp, while
the
sessile
flap.
serrated is a type of polyp. But yes, we'll definitely check with Dr. Schoen and provide an update.
And he
And
said that's my understanding as well. But in Googling it, there are articles where they refer to sessile polyps. So I just, unless it's just, I don't know. I'm just gonna ask him to be safe. But thank you for putting
we'll
that in the
check in.
chat.
we'll check in with Dr. Schoen and provide an update. And yeah, we'll definitely try to schedule a polyp 101 session. It will definitely be next year at this point. But stay tuned to Forte Fridays to make sure that you can sign up for that session. But we really appreciate all your work to enroll patients to Forte. If you have any further questions, please reach out to forte@energyoncology.org. I'm popping into the chat right now. And I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up if anybody has any last minute questions. If not, we'll just go ahead and wrap things up. Oh, I just see something from Joanna. We're having a hard time receiving the stool/dietary questionnaires by mail. Is there another way we can have patients complete this?
Isabella, are you still out there?
Yes, I am.
So is there another way patients can complete this rather than sending it in the mail? I think the answer is no, but I figured I'm going to ask you as the expert.
You are correct. That's the only way.
Well, hi. Question: can the patient complete the stool questionnaire and send it to you via email? Scan it back?
To me, to us, to data management, or to the site, to you?
No, to the site. The stool questionnaires. That was the question, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So they would.
So the patient can complete the stool questionnaire, scan it, and send it to us via email for us to enter the information to the ADC system. If it's
Or
hard,
take a,
it's easier for them.
what about taking a picture of it too? Sometimes that might be easier in emailing it.
So
So
far,
when it comes to these specific questions, a lot of our discussions internally have been, as long as the data, as long as your local IRB approves of the method that is being used and the data gets to us in Rave or Vision Tree or whatever the method is, if there is a way that works within your site, there's sites that are using a lot of different methods, pursue that internally. That's generally the rule of thumb there, right, Kristen?
Isabella, I'm deferring to you. You're the expert on data management.
Let's say if you receive a questionnaire in the email, so then you should have a source in the chart kept at the site for audit purposes.
Right, but the email is like showing that it's part of a source, and then you print the questionnaire. That's a source doc. It's technically got a signature because it's got an email address with a date and a time.
Yes, I think that would work as long as this is like as Cheryl said, it's approved and it's appropriate at your site and you have it documented, like that document in the chart.
Hi, this is Elena from Data Management as well. This has come up, I believe, in the past, and I can't remember if it was this study or another study. But I would also like to make sure with our quality assurance and our BAHO compliance officer, and have them address this as well. And we can definitely follow up.
Cheryl, maybe we can put the answers to these two issues in a future Forte Fridays newsletter. Do you agree? Okay.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions at this time? Please feel free to jump in. All right. Thank you so much again, everybody, for hopping on, and we appreciate your work on Energy CC05. Again, we are well past 22, not even 2,200 participants, so we really appreciate your efforts for Forte.